Hi guys, today we are going to discuss about STDs. So, all might be knowing what is STD. It is nothing but sexually transmitted diseases. So, how do you define that STD? Physicians and scientists characterize STD as one category of genitourinary or urogenital infections. So, these include microorganisms that enter the body through the urinary tract and the reproductive system. So, in a more simple manner, we can say that sexually transmitted diseases or sexually transmitted infections that are transmitted from one person to another through sexual contact caused by bacteria, viruses, or parasites. So, there are several STDs. Which may be bacterial in origin, chlamydial in origin, viral in origin, mycoplasmal in origin, protozoal in origin, fungal in origin, and maybe parasitic in origin. So, among those, we have two topics to discuss, which includes syphilis and gonorrhea. So, today we are going to discuss about gonorrhea. So, do you know the meaning of the term gonorrhea? So, it actually origins from Latin. So, this literally means flowing of the gonads. So, this means the pus that sometimes flows from the genitourinary tract of the infected individuals. So, what is the meaning of gonorrhea? Flowing of the gonads, which means flow of pus from the genitourinary tract of the infected individuals. Okay, so gonorrhea is one of the oldest and best known STDs caused by the bacterium. We will see which bacteria causes the gonorrhea. Now let us see the definition for gonorrhea. So it is a highly contagious sexually transmitted disease which is bacterial in origin, as I mentioned just now. So the causative organism is Neisseria gonorrhea. So who is the culprit for causing the disease gonorrhea? It is none other than Neisseria gonorrhea. So in addition to this, gonorrhea is also known as clap, drips, racehorse, and whites. Okay, so in United States, it's also known as the clap, the dips, the racehorse, and whites. Okay, so if you are hearing those names, just remember that it is nothing but gonorrhea only. Now coming to epidemiology and etiology. So Neisseria gonorrhoeae is a gram-negative diplococcus estimated to cause up to 6 lakh infections per year in the United States. So as I mentioned here, you can see this Neisseria gonorrhoeae is responsible for the death of up to 6 lakh. It lead to the infections up to 6 lakh in United States. Now let us see who is at risk, male or female. So the risk of a female acquiring the cervical infection after a single episode of vaginal intercourse with an infected male is approximately 50 to 60%, and the risk increases with multiple exposures, while the risk of disease transmission from an infected female to male is less, and it is still as high as 20 to 30%. Okay, so who is at more risk? Females. The transmission from infected male to female is high as compared to transmission from female to male. Okay, so the humans are the only known host of this intracellular parasite, so it only infects humans. That means the transmission of the bacteria occurs from human to human. Okay, so primarily through the sexual contact. Once outside the body of the human host, the bacteria cannot survive for long. So this is why it is very difficult, if not impossible, to catch gonorrhea from inanimate objects such as toilet seats. Okay, so remember that. Now we will see the Neisseria gonorrhea bacterium in a close look. So here you can see the image of the causative organism. In the previous slide I mentioned Neisseria gonorrhea is a Diplococcus bacteria, right? So Diplococcus means the round bacterium that typically occurs in the form of two joined cells. So as I mentioned, you can see here the bacteria occurs in the form of a joining of two cells. Okay, hence it is known as Diplococcus neisseria gonorrhea. So the Neisseria gonorrhea bacterium is a very successful pathogen because it is able to defend against the human body's attempts to eliminate it and is able to survive in the host without causing significant damage, at least at first. So here you can see the image of the bacterium, which is magnified 45,000 times with the use of an electron microscope. Now let us see the structure of the Neisseria gonorrhea. So as compared to other bacteriums, it is also having certain surface components which helps in their attachment to the host. Okay, so this includes pili. You can see in the picture the bacteria is having the surface component which is known as pili. Then it is also having another component, oppa. So this is nothing but the outer membrane proteins which works as a sort of glue to hold the bacteria to the cell wall. So it helps the bacteria to attach to the host membrane. Then another one is the lipopolysaccharide. So what are the main surface components? This includes pili, oppa and lipopolysaccharide. So these structures are responsible for the bacteria to attach to the host. Okay. Now let us see the pathophysiology of the gonorrhea. So pathogenesis. What is the meaning of pathogenesis? It means the ability to cause the disease, right? So who is the causative organism here? Neisseria gonorrhea. So our Neisseria gonorrhea has a highly variable pathology ranging from undetectably mild to noticeably destructive and painful conditions. Unfortunately, it is difficult to predict how any individual person would respond to an infection with Neisseria gonorrhea. So our bacterial pathology is based on the combination of portal of entry, that means the route through which the bacteria enters the body, and the second one is the cellular characteristics of the particular bacterium. So there are two factors which defines the serious infection. So those include portal of entry and the cellular characteristics of the bacteria. So the bacteria Neisseria gonorrhea is a gram-negative bacteria. So this release potent poisons called endotoxins. So these endotoxins are released by the cell wall during the bacterial death and reproduction. So these toxins are some of the most potent cell killing substances. Okay. So one route for the damage of the host is through this release of endotoxins. And in addition to that, the degree of pathology also depends upon the host immune system. So more and more people with gonorrhea also have other communicable diseases, both because their lifestyle and previous infections with gonorrhea makes them vulnerable to other infections that are occurred in the same way, that means through sexual activity. In some cases, it is beneficial to have one disease precede another because this activates the immune system. However, the presence of two debilitating diseases may put too much strain on the immune system. Now let us see the route of spread. So gonorrhea being an STD, of course it is transferred almost exclusively from host to host by unprotected sexual contact. So the bacterium travels in the mucus released by the penis or vagina. So the gonorrhea is more readily transferred from male to female. Okay, because the female body has a much larger surface area of the mucous membrane that the bacteria can penetrate. So the males contact gonorrhea about 30 to 50 times of the time during intercourse with an infected person. So the infected males pass along gonorrhea to females with a 60 to 90 percentage chance of infection. So other type of contact with infected mucus can occasionally spread gonorrhea between individuals. For example, gonorrhea has been shown to transfer from one person to another when the people share undergarments that are freshly soiled with infected mucus and urine. So it is very unlikely that gonorrhea is spread this way, even if Neisseria gonorrhea managed to get into the bloodstream through a bite or cut. So the gonorrhea can be carried from one person to another on objects that contain contaminated mucus. Luckily, however, this Neisseria gonorrhea does not survive for a long time outside of the body. So it dies within minutes to hours on the mechanical ventilators. This means it is virtually impossible to contact gonorrhea by touching chairs, doorknobs and toilet seats. So it is also very unlikely that the microbe would survive in swimming pools. So infection to the lower genital tract, the most common clinical presentation primarily manifests as urethritis in case of male, and in case of female it is endocervicitis. So the causative organism Neisseria gonorrhea travels in the mucus released by the penis or the vagina, which is released from the infected individual. So this Neisseria gonorrhea usually makes first contact with the female body at the upper region of the vagina. So other portals of entry, that means the places where a microbe enters the body. This includes eyes, rectum, throat. Okay. So in addition to vagina, this also enters the body through eyes, rectum and throat. So after entering the body, what it does, it first affects the surface of the mucous membranes. So as I mentioned previously, it is more readily transferred from males to females because the female body has a much larger surface area of the mucous membrane, so that the bacteria can penetrate. So as a result, what happens? This bacteria does not require any enzyme and toxin like other bacteria which need to penetrate the body surfaces. So once the bacteria get into the body, what happens? It stimulates the immune system. So it activates the human immune system. So as a result, you can see there is the production of cytokines. So once the Neisseria gonorrhea enters our body through several routes, it can be either from sexual route, which is the most important route. Other than that, eyes, throat and rectum. So through these portals of entry, it attaches to the surface of the mucous membrane, and this stimulates the immune system of the host, which releases the cytokines. So these cytokines are produced by lymphocytes, phagocytes and epithelial cells that are attached to the surface of the epithelial membrane. So these cytokines causes the inflammation. So this helps to fight the infection. So what is the result? There is interaction between the bacteria and the cytokines. So there is interaction between the bacteria and the cytokines. Okay. So this leads to an intense inflammatory reaction. Okay. That results in the intense inflammatory reaction that leads to purulent or pus-like discharge that oozes out from the membranes. So our Neisseria gonorrhea activates the immune system, it releases the cytokine, and there is interaction between the bacteria and the cytokines. As a result of the intense inflammatory reaction, there is release of purulent or pus-like discharge. So this pus helps in the diagnosis of the patient. That means the gonorrhea present in this pus allows for the diagnosis of the gonorrhea from samples of these secretions. So In males, you can see the pus is continuously runs out of the urethra. So in case of females, this pus is not always visible. So it is usually first detected by the healthcare professionals, which is not, that means it is not noticed by the patient herself. So this can cause the this infection can lead to irritation, right? So this further irritation can cause scarring to the infected tissue, bringing about more pain and the chance of contracting other infections. So it is possible for the bacteria to move up the reproductive tract, causing infertility in both males and females. Okay, so there is chance of infertility for both men and female, men and women. Okay, so in females, bacteria can pass into the abdominal cavity, causing pelvic inflammatory disease. So in case of females, the bacteria can enter into the abdominal cavity and this can lead to pelvic inflammatory disease. So this potential fatal condition damages the reproductive organs and can spread to blood, sometimes leading to death. Is that clear? So on contact with the mucosal surface, which is having columnar, cuboidal or non-conified squamous epithelial cells, the gonococcus attached to the cell membranes by means of its surface pili. Then those are pinocytoside. That means there is the injection of the liquid into the cell by budding small vesicles from the cell membrane. It is engulfed by the receptor mediated endocytosis. Okay, so as a result, then it activates the immune system. So the virulence of our bacterium depends upon the presence of pili and other outer membrane proteins, which includes OPA and lipopolysaccharides. So after the mucosal damage is established, PMNS invades the tissue, submucosal abscesses form and purulent exudates are secreted, as I mentioned in the previous. So in a more simple way, we can say the pathophysiology of the Neisseria gonorrhoeas. First, it enters into the body. Mention the portals of entry, which means by sexual method, eye, throat and rectum. Then it attaches to the mucosal surface, which is lined by columnar, cuboidal or non-conified squamous epithelial cells, and the gonococcus attached to the cell membranes with the help of its surface components, which include pili, OPA and polysaccharides. So these are the virulence factors of the organism. So once it attaches, it activates the human immune system. This releases the cytokines, and these cytokines and bacteria interact each other and results in the intense inflammatory reaction, which leads to the release of purulent exudates. Okay. Now coming to the clinical presentation. So the clinical presentation varies from man to woman. First of all, let us see generally how it occurs. So in men and women, the incubation period is same, that is 1 to 14, whereas the onset of symptom differs. For men it is 2 to 8 days and for women it is 10 days. And the site of infection, in case of men, it is most commonly infected in the urethra, and other parts include rectum, oropharynx and eye. And in case of women, the most commonly infected part is the endocervical canal, and others include urethra, rectum, oropharynx and eye. So coming to the symptoms, men may be asymptomatic or minimally symptomatic. Okay, so As I mentioned previously, this Neisseria gonorrhea can sometimes remain in the body without causing any disease as well. So in such cases, the patient can be remained as asymptomatic. So urethral infection, that means dysuria and urinary frequency. Then anorectal infection, asymptomatic to severe rectal pain can be seen. Then pharyngeal infection, that can also be asymptomatic to mild pharyngitis. In case of women also, the same, the patient may be asymptomatic or minimally symptomatic, but the infection, as the infection sites are differs, symptoms also differs. So in the case of endocervical infection, you can see usually asymptomatic or mildly symptomatic, and in case of urethral infection, dysuria, urinary frequency, and in case of anorectal and pharyngeal infection, symptoms same as for the men. Coming to the signs, purulent urethral or rectal discharge can be scant to profuse, and anorectal pruritus, mucopurulent discharge, bleeding. This is the case of men, and in case of women, abdominal, vaginal discharge or uterine bleeding, purulent urethral or rectal discharge can be scant to profuse. And in men, you can see complications such as rare complications such as epididymitis, prostatitis, inguinal lymphadenopathy, urethral stricture, then disseminated gonorrhea. And in case of women, you can see the complications such as pelvic inflammatory disease and associated complications, that is ectopic pregnancy, infertility. Disseminated gonorrhea is 3 times more common than in men, in women. So here you can see the disseminated gonorrhea. As a result, there is rashes which appears in the body, lesions. So this is the lesions which appears in the body for disseminated gonorrhea, and you can see the gonorrhea which leads to infection in the eye. So this condition is known as gonococcal ophthalmitis. So in this case, you can see the eye becomes red and have a purulent or bloody discharge. So if we left untreated this condition, it can cause blindness. Now coming to the diagnosis. So the first way to diagnose the patient is the physical examination. So a physical examination involves a closer inspection of the body. So the major sign during the physical examination is the irritation of the genitourinary tract. So in case of female, you can see redness of the cervix and vagina, and in case of male, it is difficult to see in the normal examination. So pus from the urethra in both females and males is another indicator of gonorrhea. So any irritation like this is scrutinized as a possible STD. Now coming to the laboratory test. So in addition to physical examination to confirm the disease, we can go for laboratory tests which include culture media, morphology test, oxidase, acid and sucrose test, enzyme substrate test, superoxide test, molecular reaction test, direct fluorescent test. So some of these may be new to you. So cultural media means it is the traditional method where the sample is placed in the culture plate and culturing the microbe. So here you can see the culturing media. So here the culturing is used using the medium chocolate agar. So it is named because of the color of the medium. So you can see the growth of the microorganisms here as dots. Next is the morphology test, where this one is conducted to determine the shape and staining property of the microorganism. So if it appears positive, then it means there is infection with Neisseria gonorrhea. Then oxidase test. So this checks for the secretion of the enzyme called oxidase. So this is a protective enzyme for the Neisseria gonorrhea, since This enzyme protects the bacterium. Neisseria gonorrhea test positive for oxidase. Then acid detection means this evaluates how the bacteria metabolize various carbohydrates. So some bacteria produce acid waste products when they digest certain carbohydrates. So Neisseria gonorrhea produces acids when it breaks down the carbohydrate glucose. So if it does not do this for other carbohydrates such as fructose, lactose, maltose and sucrose. So remember that when it breaks down the carbohydrate glucose, it releases the enzyme acid. Some bacteria will turn certain simple carbohydrates into complex chains called polymers. So polysaccharides from sucrose test investigates whether the bacterium changes sucrose into a unique carbohydrate polymer. So the Neisseria gonorrhea converts the sucrose into a starch-like chemical that turns bluish black when mixed with iodine. So that means there is Neisseria gonorrhea. Then enzyme substrate test. So this looks for the three enzymes which is produced closely by the members of the Neisseria family. So this include one of those include hydroxypolyaminopeptide. Then superoxide test. Here the bacteria a solution of hydrogen peroxide is added to the colony of bacteria. Then it breaks down the hydrogen peroxide and there is release of oxygen which appears in the form. So there is characteristics of the bubble formation. So there is superoxide positive. That means the bacteria is present. Then DFA test, that includes use of antibodies that will appear fluorescent under UV light when they are attached to the gonorrhea bacteria. So the fluorescence indicates positive test. Neisseria gonorrhea is positive. So here you can see in the test gram positive, gram negative morphology test the presence of the bacteriums. And here is the DFA test. You can see the fluorescent color here which indicates the presence of the Neisseria gonorrhea bacteria. Thank you.